makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part.
The TERF movement is gathering strength, and their latest stunt is a declaration on women's sex-based rights, which sounds very UN-ish. And I saw this because it was originally tweeted by Richard Dawkins, and I'm not surprised that Richard Dawkins is promoting something like this. I must confess, I really liked The God Delusion back in the day, but I quickly noticed that almost every new atheist started going into this vortex of Islamophobia, followed by, uh, anti-feminist. Feminism going too far, anti-SJW crap earlier in the last decade, especially like the lesser known figures that were more YouTubers. They all went into the anti-feminist route back then, and now they've evolved. Now they claim to be feminists because they are fundamentally against trans rights. So they're using this hypocritical version of feminism to justify their transphobia. So that's the vortex. That's sort of how that logic takes you over the years. So let's look at that's the tweet. Let's look at this declaration and see what is wrong with it. And there's a lot of wrong in it, but I'm not going to talk about most of it. I just want to go quickly through some of the main points. So, Declaration on Women's Sex-Based Rights. Now, just the title has a really serious problem here. And it's going to end up contradicting itself shortly thereafter. Women is gender, not sex. So, you're going to see the case that they make that they don't want to confuse sex and gender. That's their main complaint. And yet the very title confuses sex and gender. I'll just leave it at that. So on that basis, let's see. The very the elevator pitch is also incredibly problematic. So on the reaffirmation of women's sex-based rights, including women's rights to physical and reproductive integrity, and the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women and girls that result from the replacement of the category of sex with that of gender identity. Exactly the thing that they just did in the name of their declaration. And from surrogate motherhood and related practices. This is so strange. This is really strange. Why? I mean, the essence of this declaration is just pure, unadulterated transphobia. So why are they bringing in like this surrogate motherhood into this as well? This is very, very strange. But then the people who, let's be honest, TERFs are not right in the head in many ways. So anyway, uh, so sex is defined by the United Nations as the physical and biological characteristics that distinguish males from females. But then it says gender uh, refers to the roles, behaviors, activities, and attributes that a given society at a given time considers appropriate for men and women. These attributes, opportunities, and relationships are socially constructed and are learned through socialization processes. Again, so far, so good. Now, even on the sex issue, there are some problems with that in the sense that there's no such thing as like a 100% man or male or female of the human species on the basis of sex. Many men have characteristics that they are born with that are more similar to women. Many women have characteristics of men that they are born with. So it's not like 100%. So even that gives some leeway in the sense that, hey, the categories that we describe from a merely sexual scientific perspective are not entirely fixed. So, but this does not give any sort of concession to that point. But anyway, so gender. Yeah, I guess let's agree with this definition. Um, but here's their problem. Here's their main gripe. Recent changes replacing references to the category of sex, which is biological, with the language of gender, which refers to stereotyped sex roles, in United Nations documents, strategies, and actions, has led to confusion, which ultimately risks undermining the protection of women's human rights. So, one thing that, if you're going to make this accusation, so you're basically saying that the United Nations is guilty of basically kind of using gender as a catch-all phrase. Where's your evidence? I would suspect that you would have some evidence of this, but I'm going to give you a spoiler. There is no evidence whatsoever. There's not a single case study of how the United Nations misused gender identity and how this had a demonstrably negative outcome on any policy that they undertook in whatever country that they're based in. There is no evidence of this whatsoever. So purely on those grounds, you can basically just throw this into the garbage. Because if you're going to make a case like this, that there is something going so horribly wrong in terms of UN policy or in terms of development policy across the world, that this is all wrong because they're confusing sex and gender, and this is harming people, you would need to make a case on why that is. But they don't. So just on that basis, this is pure BS. Yeah. The confusion between sex and gender has contributed to the increasing acceptability of the idea of innate gender identities and has led to the promotion of a right to the protection of such identities, ultimately leading to the erosion of the gains made by women over decades. Now, this is a very common TERF argument that trans rights or whatever, the gender ideology is somehow openly reducing the gains, the eroding the gains that women made. Again, show proof. Show proof. You know what actually is eroding the gains made by women over decades? Things like Texas's abortion ban, which has nothing to do with transgender people or gender. Those are the things that are eroding it. Fascism is eroding it. And I can guarantee you that every single fascist in the world is a transphobe. They all are. And a lot of them are using this excuse to justify their discrimination against trans people. They're using this same argument. And I know this because I know TERFs who have ended up quoting some very vile people as proof that even the right sees the trans movement as a threat. So just be very, very careful. Again, show evidence that this is the case and show how any erosion of women's rights around the world actually has to do with trans rights gaining acceptance. Unless you can show that proof, this is also bullshit. Women's rights would have been achieved on the basis of sex. Really? Really? This is the part that I find really strange. And this is I think myself, like most people who sort of share my lefty views, I have no problem saying that trans women are women because I think that's the truth. Because when you say the word woman, you're not thinking about sex. You're thinking about gender. When you walk in the street and you see a human being that dresses like, the Western conception of a woman, who looks like the Western conception of a woman, I'm assuming we're in a Western society, who behaves and shares cultural practices that we normally associate with women, do you actually check what her biological sex is? Do you check? Do you have to know that beforehand to refer to this person as a woman, or to forget referring to, for your mind to see that person and doubt that they are a woman? Do you need that proof? You don't. So it's really, really that simple. Really, really that simple. Now, most of women's rights. Now there is a segment of women's rights that do have to do with sex and reproduction, etc. So yeah, there is a segment of these rights that I do agree exist and are valid. I don't see why trans rights threaten them in any conceivable way. I don't see how a trans man who can get pregnant and have a baby suddenly threatens every other woman on this planet having a baby. I just don't see how. Um, but for the most part, most of women's rights have nothing to do with sex, have a lot to do with the discrimination that women have faced in the labor force, in politics, etc. And this has nothing to do with sex because, again, when a woman is barred from voting, as it was the case 100 years ago, were they checking down there? No. Uh, when they were barred from a job, was there a sex check right there? No. The grand majority of women's rights have nothing to do with sex, but they want to lump this all into the sex category. Uh, yeah. Um, so again, however, the concept of gender identity makes socially constructed stereotypes with organize and maintain women's inequality into essential and innate conditions, thereby undermining women's sex-based rights. Again, this reminds me of libertarians arguing economics, that they just bring up an axiom or a theory that they have, and there's no empirical evidence whatsoever. It's like if you raise the minimum wage, I'm just going to fire all my employees. There's no evidence that this happens on an aggregate level. So again, they don't prove that this happens. This is what TERFs always fearmonger about. Oh my God, men are gonna go into women's bathrooms, and you know, it's almost like like the men are gonna come in, well, trans men in what they're thinking, and just like whip their schlongs out the moment they walk into the. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. There's no evidence that this happens already in places where you have gender neutral bathrooms or things. This doesn't happen. This doesn't happen. Remember all the fear mongering about sports, that trans women are suddenly going to win every single women's Olympic medal, and yet they don't, despite the fact that they've been allowed to compete in the Olympics for the past God knows how many Olympics. This just doesn't happen. This is just fear mongering based on zero empirical evidence. And at the most, they'll put, one article of one event happening, and they will make it seem like this is just normal behavior, which it isn't. So don't buy into this shit. Yeah. So this is again, the right of individuals to dress and present themselves as they choose is compatible with women's base rights. But the concept of gender identity has enabled men who claim a female gender identity to assert in law, policies, and practice that they are members of the category of women, which is a category based on sex. No, it's not. Not in things like politics, not in things like let's imagine that I decide to identify as a woman, and eventually I want to change all my documents and I want my passport to say woman. What does that have to do with sex? What sexual act am I using my passport for? Nothing. The grand majority of these things, again, don't have anything to do with sex. Oh God, this is just and here we go again. The concept of gender identity is used to challenge individuals' rights to define their sexual orientation on the basis of sex rather than gender identity, enabling men who claim a female gender identity to seek to be included in the category of lesbian, which is a category based upon sex. Wait, lesbians have a different sexual constitution than normal women? What the fuck? What the fuck is this? Is just so wrong. Oh my God. Oh my God. Like, this undermines the sex-based rights of lesbians and is a form of discrimination against women. Holy shit. Oh dear Lord. Yeah. Some men who claim a female gender identity seek to be included in the legal category of mother. The CEDAW emphasizes maternal rights and the social significance of maternity. Maternal rights and services are based on women's unique capacity to gestate and give birth to children. The inclusion of men who claim a female gender identity within the legal category of mother erodes the social significance of maternity and undermines the maternal rights for which the CEDAW provides. What if you're a child born of a mother who dies during childbirth, and therefore you don't have a mother figure who undertakes this maternity process with you? Does that mean that is this something wrong? Like, do you is the concept of maternity lost here? Was it that necessary for the child to have their biologically female mother be a part of this maternity process? The answer is no. Just no. There are certain needs that children do that can be obtained through other means. But it's not absolutely necessary to have a biologically female mother. And, the flip side of this is you have, like, the men's rights activists and, like, the Jordan Petersons arguing that, a child without a father figure is just not going to, develop the same way. That's bullshit. That is bullshit. I grew up without a father, and I'm pretty fine. Definitely finer than Jordan Peterson. Anyway. Yeah. So you kind of get the picture, and this is, like I said, a very, very, very long document. Here's another good one. Violence against women is a manifestation of historically unequal power relations between men and women, and which have led to domination over and discrimination against women by men, and to the prevention of the full advancement of women. And that violence against women is one of the crucial social mechanisms by which women are forced into a subordinate position compared to men. This domination and discrimination is based on sex and not on gender identity. Seriously? Seriously? You gotta be kidding me. You just gotta be kidding me. I already explained how the denial of basic women's rights, like political rights, labor rights, etc., does not have to do with sex. It just doesn't. And this implies that, like, every manifestation of male violence or violence from men towards women has to do because there is, like, some sexual relationship going on here. That there is obviously taking aside actual cases of sexual violence like rape. Of course, rape does have is based on sex. That is a form of domination based on, not domination, violence based on sex. But almost every other form of discrimination faced by women does not have to do intrinsically with their sex. In other words, it could be done exactly the same to a woman as it could be done to a trans woman. And I should add, trans women are discriminated way, 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 way more than any actual woman. So, this is, where do I? Yeah, So that's just the intro. Then there's like a preamble to this, and oh my god, I just can't. I just can't. Anyway, I want to show you some of the comments that people have made. So the first case is really the only new atheist who I still have a lot of enormous respect to, and that is Matt Dillahunty. He's really good. He's the host of the Atheist Experience. If you haven't seen it, it's really, really good. It's really the only atheist channel nowadays still worth watching. And he's really, like, he truly takes the humanist part of humanism very seriously. And I've seen some episodes where he has trans people as co-hosts or non-binary people as co-hosts. So he's definitely around these people to sort of be, I guess, empathic about their struggles. So he has always been very, very, very steadfast in favor of trans rights. And yeah, And this is someone who knows Richard Dawkins. You know, they were in that ecosystem, in that sphere. I won't be signing. It's just a way for anti-trans bigots to pretend they're doing something good when they're doing the opposite. You continue to cave to transphobic fear-mongering while the rest of us actually educate and improve the world with humanist values. Mm-hmm. Yep. Here's a good one. Sex-based rights. Prior to 2015, the term had been used exactly once on here. It's a term that has been invented purely to justify trans exclusion. Yeah, he's getting a lot of pushback from people. Yeah, this one. As a woman, I really object to men signing this in the name of defending women's rights. The majority of women are more than happy to share safe spaces with all women and understand that trans rights do not impact our safety. Yep, pretty much. Openly a science denier now. Yep. Holy crap. Yeah, the Declaration of Women's Rights that seeks to curtail women's bodily autonomy and reproductive choices even before the first paragraph. Yeah, the obsession with surrogate, I didn't really go into detail because it's kind of not the point of this video, but really strange why they also object to this. Yeah. This is sad. Sad. I will not instead. I'm going to donate to a trans organization that has to unfortunately spend time trying to undo some of the serious harm gender critical beliefs like this cause. Yeah, oh by the way, that's another one. That's another one of the red flags. I'm not a transphobe. I'm just gender critical. I disagree with like the gender ideology, whatever. None of this is an ideology. This is basic stuff that science as we move forward ends up being more in line with. So it's shocking that Dawkins doesn't want to actually read some of the science and base his, but he's just caught in this vortex of anti-woke, anti-SJW, as with every single other new atheist, except from Matt Dillahunty, a total Chad of a human being. But yeah, they're gonna keep doing this. And remember, it just doesn't hurt anyone to feel a bit of empathy to people who are discriminated to the extent that trans people are discriminated in this world. And I saw there were some recent feminist marches here in Mexico, and there were some cases of these rat femmes openly insulting and hitting, assaulting trans people who were there. So these, yeah, I have no respect to any feminist who doesn't have any empathy whatsoever for trans people and who doesn't realize that their struggle is a complement to your struggle. Because every single minority that is struggling in somehow against whatever forces you are fighting against, whether it's capitalism, whether it's patriarchy, whether it's fascism, there should be some solidarity. And it really doesn't hurt to have some empathy with these people. Treat them the way they want to be treated, see them as they want to be seen. And, you know, if you were lucky enough that you were born in the body that you identify with, if you are someone who is lucky enough to see, you know, whatever culturally acceptable expression of your gender is like the baseline, whether you're a man or a woman, you're lucky. You're lucky. But you have to put yourself in the shoes of someone who doesn't. And I don't think that's very hard. But yeah. On that note, if you like this video, please like, please share, and most importantly, please subscribe to this channel. And I will see you next time.